Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, glad you're with us on the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Pull up the stool. We're ready for you. We're glad you're here, and we've got plenty to talk about today. Jim, we mentioned at the start of the impeachment process that we're not going to dive into it day after day. If something major happens, we'll get into it, like the day Gordon Sondland testified and so forth. Today, the Judiciary Committee took over, and it's Constitutional Law Professor Day on Capitol Hill. So, that's going to be riveting stuff because there's nothing more exciting than constitutional law professors.
What's more is when they do veer away from their professorial legal jargon and things like that, you get things like the Michael Gerhardt, the University of North Carolina law professor, who said, the president's serious misconduct, including bribery, although I think really he was offering a bribe, not taking a bribe, soliciting a personal favor from a foreign leader in exchange for his exercise of power and obstructing justice in Congress are worse than the misconduct of any prior president. Greg, you're a well-informed guy. I'm sure many listeners off the top of their heads, things are popping up. You're like, 8 presidents owned slaves in the White House. That strikes me as worse. FDR, Japanese internment camps, tens of thousands of law-abiding Americans put into internment camps and imprisoned for 4 years just because of their ancestry. Woodrow Wilson, resegregating the federal government, the Alien and Sedition Act. Aaron Burr killed a guy. Think that'd be worse?
He wasn't president, but I get your point. Yes. So the hyperbole is running wild, and all that to say that impeachment is not one of our three martinis today. As we mentioned in our social media postings yesterday, but didn't have time in the podcast itself on Tuesday because of when we recorded, we didn't know that Kamala Harris was dropping out of the presidential race. But Kamala Harris is dropping out of the presidential race, and that is exceedingly good news. She posted about a 4-minute video to social media. Here's a little bit of that.
I've taken stock, and I've looked at this from every angle. And over the last few days, I have come to one of the hardest decisions of my life. So here's the deal, guys. My campaign for president simply does not have the financial resources to continue, and the financial resources we need to continue. I'm not a billionaire. I can't fund my own campaign. And as the campaign has gone on, it has become harder and harder to raise the money we need to compete. In good faith, I cannot tell you, my supporters and volunteers, that I have a path forward if I don't believe I do. So, to you, my supporters, my dear supporters, it is with deep regret, but also with deep gratitude, that I am suspending our campaign today.
Jim, we've said for a while now that she is at least among the phoniest candidates in this field. The fact that she couldn't figure out where she stood on Medicare for all, where she stood on busing, her attack on Biden, getting attacked by Gabbard, all of these things definitely worked against her. She thought she was top tier, and she probably was at least very close to it in mid to late summer. And here we are between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and she's not even going to make it to Iowa.
Yeah, I can come up with a bad angle to this good martini and a good angle to our bad martini today. Sometimes you get an unusual flavor that has both good and bad feelings about it. But I'm going to observe, obviously, look, this was not someone who you and I agreed with very much. And in fact, you think about how she described her powers, the presidency, what she wanted to do as president. I think she was one of the more dangerous options in the Democratic field. My colleague, Charlie Cook, laid out all the different ways in which she kept saying, I'm going to use my executive power to make people do this. We're going to take some actions on the Second Amendment, if Congress won't act. The arguments against it's only the out party that ever seems to complain about the imperial presidency. A few of us do remember, hey, wait a second, we don't want one person setting massive policy. We're supposed to be doing these things through a legislative process. You don't get to just, hey, I'm going to executive order this thing if Congress won't act. But that was her attitude towards a whole bunch of these things. And thankfully for us, she turned out to be a bad candidate. I actually thought she had a decent chance of beating Trump. But I think this is the most fascinating thing about watching Kamala Harris over the past year or so have been how heading into this on paper, she had such a, just the right resume to appeal to Democratic primary voters. She was African American. She was a woman. She on paper, she brought a lot to the table. And then as a candidate, she just wasn't that good. I think the factor that, look, everybody's going to point to all kinds of different things. A lot of people say, oh, Tulsi Gabbard's debate, dissection of her record as a prosecutor did it. I certainly think that didn't help any. But that kind of fits into a broader pattern of Kamala Harris saying she'd take a position and then it would not play well and she would back away from it. Did this in healthcare a couple of times. Was she going to get rid of private insurance? She was initially open to letting felons vote from behind bars, and then she said, "Oh wait, no, I don't really support that." A couple other times over the course of the campaign, she would offer a plan, it would not go well, and she would say, "Well, actually, what I meant to say, or what my actual position is," and stuff like that. And it was kind of interesting to see that the New York Times had that devastating little profile of her, very in depth, lots of on-the-record quotes from people on her campaign staff, saying that the problem was other people on the campaign staff, which is never a good sign for it. But every campaign has some infighting. What really jumped out on that article was the indecisiveness of Kamala Harris, and I think the best way to summarize it is she wanted to run as the ideal woke candidate to really excite the progressives, many of whom are currently much more enamored with Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. And then she would do that, it wouldn't go well, and then she would back away from it, and she ended up satisfying neither side. It did not go well for her. I do think there is a little bit the possibility the next debate stage is going to have entirely white candidates. I think there's reason for Democrats to be bothered by that. I think there's reason for all Americans to be bothered by that. Not so much in this. By the way, I wrote in the corner yesterday, if you're wondering why Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and Julian Castro aren't qualifying for those stage, well, it's because they're doing very, very badly amongst African Americans and Latinos. It's not, oh, whites are keeping them out. It's like, no, actually, blacks and Latinos aren't that interested in supporting these candidates. I do think it kind of says something, Steyer made it for his billions. Bloomberg is hanging around. He's got his billions. I think it's understandable. There'd be some frustration that you're seeing guys who can self-fund, hang around forever, whereas other candidates can't. And I think, also the other thing is that it's running for president is different in an era when you have 25 people competing for the same donor base.
It's those darn racist Democratic primary voters that we keep hearing about. They just won't give these people a chance. Although, if you really do care about the diversity on the debate stage, because that's where all the media went with this story yesterday, you could still donate to Yang. You could still donate to Booker. You could still donate to Gabbard. I mean, they're all still in the race.
And for what it's worth, Yang is close to qualifying. It all depends on, the DNC set up this category of, well, you got to have this many donors, which, by the way, apparently Mike Bloomberg will never appear on a debate stage because he's not interested in donors.
Right.
And the second, so Yang's close. Gabbard's got a shot. It looks like Booker's not going to make it. People forgot Castro was in the race, so I don't think he's anywhere near getting close to it. The DNC tried to make it fair, and in the end, the billionaires are still doing fine, and the lesser-known candidates, the ones who are minorities, didn't do as well. And it's kind of understandable that they would be frustrated with this setup. And I'm not sure it's, I want an America where anybody who's really good has a shot at getting the nomination, and you can define good a little very differently. But the idea that, the self-funders are going to continue to have such a giant advantage in this, I think there's a good reason for Democrats to be grumbling about that.
Jim, turns out that you can't donate to Wayne Messam anymore. Apparently he dropped out. I noticed that yesterday in a list of people who had dropped out after Harris did.
Did he? I want the listeners to know, this is the first I'm hearing of this.
Yeah,
and I was vaguely aware of the fact that Andrew Messam was running for president.
Wayne Messam.
Wait, whatever. Messam. He was the big soccer player, right?
And therein lies
Don't mess with Messam or something. Don't mess him with Texas.
Parting shot comes from former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who was a guest on the Shannon Bream show on the Fox News channel last night. She asked him about impeachment, I think, and then the fact that Kamala Harris was getting out, but she would be a juror, assuming this goes to an impeachment trial.
One of the jurors who will be sitting in the Senate is now Senator Kamala Harris. She won't be on the campaign trail anymore. She dropped out today. Any thoughts on that?
Well, she claimed one of her great achievements was to stand up to Jeff Sessions, Brett Kavanaugh, Attorney General Barr, and President Trump. Well, she's 0 for 4. All four of them are still standing, and she's out.
Man, that Keebler elf can be mean when he wants to be.
And with that, Jeff Sessions unclipped his mic and dropped it on the counter and walked off the set. But, Jim, apparently the country's really racist because not only are Democrats racist for not giving the minority candidates more money and more attention and more support in the polls to get them on the debate stage, but all the ones that support President Trump are also racist. that means pretty much the whole country's racist. Who says all the Trump supporters are racist? Well, that would be Pete Buttigieg, who, as you know, is not doing well among black voters in the Democratic primary. But he was at an event yesterday where he decided that there's no excuse for supporting President Trump unless you're just either ignoring racial issues or you're actually hostile towards racial harmony.
Anyone who supported this president is, at best, looking the other way on racism, at best.
Jim, we've talked about this before. It's a classic move where if you can't make inroads in different demographics or you don't understand why the person you really don't want to win is still doing well, it's got to be racism.
Yeah, and look, this is why I think there's a little bit of a, the good aftertaste to this bad martini is that I'm sure there's a decent number of Republican or Trump-supporting listeners out there who are like, ooh, run with this, Democrats. Go with it. Nominate Pete, and Pete, you beat this drum as much as you can. You make this election a referendum on, were you racist to vote for Trump in 2016? And see how many Trump voters you get to flip back. And that's the thing. Could Democrats win by increasing their turnout above the level it was in 2016? Sure. And in fact, among the challenges Democrats have, run somebody more likable than Hillary Clinton is really not the highest bar they have to clear. But that having been said, you probably want to win back some of those folks who voted for Trump. And as many, demographic studies and polls have indicated, there were a decent number of people, particularly in those key upper Midwest states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Iowa, who voted for Obama twice and then voted for Trump. And if your attitude is, well, first of all, the fact they voted for Obama twice would be the first piece of counter evidence against the idea that, they're always driven by racial animosity. And I don't think people subscribe to this, the theory that, they were not racist as in 2012, but within that 4-year period, they somehow became racist. No. Look, there were legitimate reasons to vote for Donald Trump in the 2016 general election. I know this is going to shock Pete Buttigieg, but you know what? A lot of people didn't like Hillary Clinton, and that, probably was the single biggest factor in why he won. This is a faint, more polite echo of the deplorables argument. Look, it's politics, right? It's rough. It's not beanbag. Wear a cup. Life is going to be tough. You want to attack your opponent, go right ahead. Just hammer them. Rip into them. Your opponent's a duty head, neater, anything you want to say, go right ahead. The moment you start attacking the other guy's voters, look, on paper, you're supposed to be trying to win these people's votes. Every president, I'm going to be a president for all Americans. If you think, 60-some million people are racist, well, then you're not going to be a president for all Americans, right? You've already prejudged them to be terrible people. Anyway, that's where that's. I mean, I can see this. I can understand why Democrats, believe it, because at the heart of the Democratic mindset is we are better people than you, right? That's the operating principle of all this. And again, maybe Buttigieg, if he gets the nomination, will instantly forget this or backtrack or offer a more nuanced take. But all in all, I think this is a pandering and catering to Democratic voters in a way that probably is very harmful to the country, even if it does succeed. And I don't really think it's a particularly wise strategy for a general election. And
he just kneecapped one of his stronger arguments, if he has strong arguments for being the nominee at younger than 40 years of age. And that's that, hey, I understand the blue-collar American because I'm from the Midwest. I understand why they did what they did, even though I disagree with them. I'm the guy who's in a unique position to win them over. Oh, and by the way, you're all racist.
Does he think most people in Indiana are racist? His home state? I got to go back and check. I know South Bend's pretty blue, but I'm going to guess that, Trump probably got 30, 40. There were not a lot of jurisdictions where Trump lost, less than like 30%. So do you think 30% of your fellow citizens are racist? 40, 50 statewide? Good luck, or as they say in dodgeball. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for him.
That's right. Well, Jim, you said that politics takes its toll, and sadly, so does age. And while the holiday season may be upon us, you don't have to let age and its effect on your skin have the last word, because this is the time of year where your family, maybe getting together with some friends, you take a lot of pictures, maybe even some videos, and you're capturing all the laughs, the smiles, and the posing, some of them close up, and then also every under-eye bag or crow's feet or wrinkles. And those are the telltale signs of aging. We all age. It's unavoidable, despite how hard you might try sometimes. And nobody wants those images permanently etched in their holiday cards. So now imagine all those issues are gone. Not through some risky, expensive surgery. We're talking about just getting rid of them in minutes. You can do it with Plexiderm, which is a clinically studied serum that visibly eliminates your wrinkles, crow's feet, and under-eye bags in just minutes. It's exactly what you need to get through the holiday season and beyond.
Don't believe it? Just try it. Now you won't have to imagine anymore. You will look like yourself, just 10 years younger. Plexiderm can give you the confidence you need to face, let's say that judgmental family member, because we all have one, Aunt Edna. That best part is Plexiderm goes on clear, so nobody will know you're using it, unless you choose to tell them.
Get Plexiderm's holiday promotion. Go to tryplexiderm.com and use our promo code Martini for 50% off plus an additional $10 off. I'm just thinking about Aunt Edna, mainly from vacation, but everybody's got one, even if her name's not Edna. That's right, 50% off plus an additional $10 off. This offer is also available by calling 1-800-685-1292 and mentioning the code Martini. Plexiderm is backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. Visit tryplexiderm.com today and use the code Martini at checkout. Again, tryplexiderm, Plexiderm.com. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And for this one, we stay pretty close to home here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, which is bluer and bluer, especially after Democrats did very, very well in the elections last month. So there's a Democratic governor, Ralph Northam, and the Democrats will be in control of the state House of Delegates as well as the state Senate. And the first thing they really want to do is bring in a lot of gun control measures, even far more aggressive than Governor Northam was pitching last year in the wake of the mass shooting in Virginia Beach. But the redder parts of Virginia are not taking this lying down, and dozens of local jurisdictions now are putting together sanctuary policies. Some cities, lots of counties, some of the more rural areas of the state, but not in every situation. And they're essentially saying, look, what you want to do is unconstitutional. We're not going to enforce that. The sheriffs have the right as a constitutional officer to say whether they're going to enforce those laws or not. Well, Democrats who love the idea of sanctuary cities and counties when it comes to not cooperating with ICE and federal law requiring that local jurisdictions hang on to people in the country illegally who have committed crimes, and ICE is looking to get over there and pick them up when their time in jail has ended. They are not happy about this at all. There's a Democratic delegate named Ken Plum who represents Reston, which is near D.C., so blue part of the state, talking with NBC4, the Washington NBC affiliate here. He says, quote, the notion that you can have a locality void a state law by declaring yourself a sanctuary simply is not going to hold up in court. Jim, the double standards are dizzying.
Look, maybe we're being a little bit unfair here, Greg, because I've actually talked to a couple of Democrats about this, and they made this pretty compelling argument once you look at it through their eyes. See, they say that, look, these gun nuts are going to declare sanctuary counties and sanctuary cities just because they've decided that gun laws would be unfair, unjust, or against American values, or maybe even that they're just unconstitutional. The difference is that Democrats, they create sanctuary cities and sanctuary counties against immigration laws because they've decided that these laws are unfair and unjust and against American values and maybe even unconstitutional. So, Greg, do you see the difference?
Yes, it's an issue they don't like, so they have a much different standard now.
I do not like sanctuary cities for the rather glaring point of we've seen multiple cases in which you catch guys who actually are violent, and it turns out that they were processed in cities that were in sanctuary cities and like that. They end up getting released. They don't get handed over to ICE, and they end up committing another violent crime. That kind of nightmare scenario is why you'd want, at minimum, take a real look at this. And if you're going to, not turn somebody over to ICE, for jaywalking, fine. For anybody with a violent crime, I really don't understand this. I don't understand how you can justify somebody who's committed a violent crime, does not belong in this country. Oh, we're not going to handle over ICE, and it looks like political pandering. In the case of these gun law sanctuaries, first of all, is there a little bit of mischief in the minds of these Second Amendment advocates? Sure. Do they kind of want to, do this kind of precise scenario where they make Democrats insist, no, our sanctuary counties are totally different? Yes, of course. But look, I'm sure they're going to make the argument. I am sure right now, lawyers for the National Rifle Association and all kinds of other groups are ready to make the argument that just about anything that comes down the pike from Ralph Northam is going to be unconstitutional. They may win, they may not. But I think it's safe to say they're going to, take their chances with judges and to say, no, this is in violation of the Second Amendment. You can't do this sort of thing. And the other thing is that, yes, good for you Democrats. You did win big. You've won big in several consecutive cycles in Virginia. You now have a majority of this. But there are some chunks of your state that vehemently disagree with this. And Stephen Gutowski, who covers this issue for Washington Free Beacon and other places, there was a huge turnout here in Fairfax County in this kind of a notion. I don't know if Fairfax is necessarily contemplating this. It's kind of tougher, but Fairfax is perceived as this deep blue, part of the Northern Virginia, D.C. suburbs. But there are still lots of Republicans who live in this place. Still lots of right-leaning people who live here. Let me give you the distinction, since, Greg, I know you live a little bit down the road. How do you know it was a Hillary Clinton supporter in my neighborhood in Fairfax County?
Bumper stickers, yard signs, that sort of thing.
Yard signs, right? How did you know the Trump voters?
The ones who didn't have Hillary signs.
The ones who had nothing, right? But they're there. They may not want to advertise it. They may not want to get their car keyed or, toilet paper, flaming bag of poo on their doorstep or something like that. But they're there and they're going to vote on this. So anyway, we'll see. But, I kind of wonder if this is, the awakening the sleeping giant sort of thing. That, and by the way, it would be nice to see these people as active during the state legislative elections. But they perhaps weren't as that. But again, these are folks who are not going to go quietly. And maybe this will get Democrats to rethink things. But my guess is you'll just see more arguments of, no. Our sanctuary counties are totally different than yours, and that's why they're okay.
In Prince William County, where I live, there was a blue wave there, and it had been a Republican board. It's going to be a Democratic board. So the lame duck Republican board is planning to put in a sanctuary policy, and the incoming chairwoman of the democratically controlled board has said that'll immediately be repealed come January.
Let's go right ahead. Let's put this front and center before voters. Good luck, everybody.
Yes. All right. Jim, happy Wednesday. You're actually off tomorrow. You're on a field trip, so good luck with that.
Fourth graders going to a major historical site in Virginia. Lord, I hope they don't barf too much this time. They always want you to help out with the school, Greg, and I prefer to do it like a Band-Aid. I'm ripping it off as quickly and painfully as possible, all in one big day.
Well, as I recall, the Garrity field trip policy is as long as you show back up with the same number of kids you left with, you're good. And if they're the same kids you left with, bonus points.
Exactly. I mean, I'm coming back with 30 kids, Greg. I can't make any guarantees, but just think of it as like elementary school free agency. You're gonna lose a few, but you bring back some new ones, and hopefully everybody's happy with the new mix.
Well, enjoy. I will be glad to hear all about it on Friday. See you then.
See you Friday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos, Radio America. So glad you stopped by for the discussion today on the 3 Martini Lunch. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Also, leave us a great review over at iTunes. That helps us out a lot. And don't forget to visit our great sponsor, Plexiderm, at tryplexiderm.com. And we look forward to having you back Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.